Good morning, Ian Koniak here, and we just closed out our fiscal half. And today's tip, super important. When you're selling to a large enterprise, you must know their buying process. I'm not talking about knowing how to close a business. I'm talking about knowing when your decision maker or actual department you're selling to says yes, what happens next. In terms of large companies, typically they don't just sign orders. They can't just sign an order form. Typically there's a PO process. And during that PO process, they have to submit what's called a purchase requisition or PR. Typically, depending on the dollar amount of that purchase requisition, it may require different approval levels. Okay. The other thing is you may be doing a large deal. In our case, I sell software at Salesforce, and the renewal deal, let's say they're spending $1 million a year, but the renewal is for $1.5 million a year. Well, on paper, I'm getting $500K in revenue incremental, but for that particular renewal, if it's a 3-year deal, then they're seeing a $4.5 million commitment on paper. They're not seeing a $500K incremental. They're seeing a $4.5 million order form. So would it make more sense not to do a renewal and just sell $500K because they're below $1 million threshold? I don't know. It depends on the company. These are all things that you have to find out during the qualifying process. So I do it real simple. I say, hey, assuming everything looks good and we get your business approval to move forward, we get your executive approval to move forward, what happens next? What do you have to do? Well, we have to submit a PR. Okay, well, what happens after that? Who has to approve it? Well, then it has to go to my boss. Is there anyone else who has to approve it? Well, yes, there's a finance counterpart in our department who also has to approve it. Are there any thresholds? In other words, based on the dollar amount, do you know if this has to go to a CFO or another level? Well, actually, yes. If it's over $1 million, then it has to go to our CFO. Okay, is the CFO involved or are they aware of this deal? Well, actually, we haven't brought them in yet. Well, maybe we should bring them in now to give them a heads up that this is coming through. So if we ask for a PR requisition that they have to approve on the last day of the quarter, then they're not going to say, wait a minute, I don't know anything about this. We need to meet on it. Okay. The reason I'm sharing this story is because there were 2 deals that I was dealing with last week. It was the close of our quarter. One of the deals, I knew the PR process really, really well. I knew who the decision makers are, where it went, what purchasing agent was responsible for buying it, and we gave it a week extra. We ended up getting it in. The other deal, the business unit that was buying, it was a larger deal, put in the PR the Friday of the end of the year, July 31st, or the end of the quarter, and they just simply ran out of time. So that PR actually got approved by the chief customer officer, it got approved by the president of the division, but then it had to go to a global president and actually had to go to their CEO because of the size. And they simply weren't going to take a meeting and review and sign off on a deal that size without knowing what it was about. So they're going to be reviewing on next week, and most likely it's going to close, but it slipped. Even though we were trying to get it in the quarter, it slipped simply because we didn't get the PR request in time. So when you get a yes, the way you get around this is you have to have that PR request at least 2 days prior to your end of your quarter if you're on, or end of the month if you're on a cycle. Give it 2 days to go through the process, okay? Nobody wants to be told they have to make a decision the last day, and even more so, they don't want to have to call their boss and say, hey, you have to approve this because this vendor is going to pull the deal if we don't do that. That's unnecessary pressure. So the way you get around it is you plan ahead, you qualify, you understand what their PR process is, and you give it enough time. Otherwise, it's going to be super frustrating. You're going to miss out. You're going to see deals slip, and you're going to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you're pressuring your customer and they have to put pressure internally, which could damage the overall relationship. I hope this helps. Hope you guys have a great week. Take care.